Welcome back for another episode of the Prize Podcast, where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. I'm very thankful to be here this morning as I'm recording this morning. Maybe you're listening to this in the afternoon as you run, or maybe you're sitting on your couch and just having a chill time. My name's Kyle Hunsinger. I am a big sports enthusiast, but I'm also much more one who loves Christianity and loves Scripture. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how those two things intersect. But before I do that, I do want to go ahead and remind you today that if you would like to know more information about me, you can go to Pursue the Prize at gmail.com, or you can go to KMoneyDH. You can pursue both of those things. So I pray that you'll do that. The at KMoneyDH is my Twitter handle, or now called X. Okay, so today is the day we've been looking forward to. Today is the beginning of preseason NFL football. Now, I know it's not college football. I know we got some time left before that ends up happening, but at least we get a taste of football. It's like finally we get something here. But don't get too crazy. Don't get too excited because it's just the preseason. And tonight is only one game. It's the Hall of Fame game, and it's going to be between the Houston Texans versus the Chicago Bears. A couple things to keep in mind about this game. As one of the offensive coordinators for the Chicago Bears, named Sean Waldron, Shane Waldron, he was the one that said, or they said in this article through NFL.com, that it's going to probably be a pretty vanilla game, which means it probably is not going to be super exciting if you are looking for your star players like Caleb Williams and possibly even CJ Stroud. I don't know if CJ Stroud is playing, but the rumor is that Caleb Williams will not take a play tonight, and most of the major starters will probably not start tonight. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if they change their mind and if they want to give something people to watch tonight. So we'll have to just wait and see for that. A couple things you need to know about just kind of leading into this year. We need to go back to last year. We need to go back to the past in order to understand the future for these two teams. Number one, the Houston Texans actually went to the playoffs last year. They went 10-7. Remember, there was an extended record extended schedule that went into January the 7th. Well, they ended up being in the lead at the top of the AFC South and won the division, which is wild with a rookie quarterback. Well, now he's in his second year, so we'll see, does he progress or does he regress in his growth as an NFL quarterback? It's looking like he's going to do just fine. On the opposite side, with you got Bryce Young, who was drafted in his rookie season, did not have as good of a year, but I also think that's not totally his fault. The Carolina Panthers are in a hot mess with a lot of different things because of their owner and because of a lot of things that they just made some big mistakes in some draft picks. But hopefully they'll pick back up. I'm encouraged to hopefully see them do better this year in the AFC South, the NFC South for the Carolina Panthers. So you got CJ Stroud. He had 4,108 passing yards last year, which is pretty crazy. Just to give you some perspective, Justin Fields, he played for the Chicago Bears last year. He only had 2,500 passing yards, about 25. It's actually 2,562, so 2,562 passing yards. That is wild. But Justin Fields also had 9 interceptions, but he had 44 sacks. It's a lot of sacks. But he's going to be over in Pittsburgh this year, which is my favorite team. And he'll be playing alongside Russell Wilson to see who actually gets the starting position at quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But going back to CJ Stroud, they went to the divisional round. They played the Baltimore Ravens and got rocked because Baltimore's a really good team. But Houston had a really good season. Nothing to hang their head down in shame, because they did really well for what they had. Now, on the other hand, it's the opposite. So as you saw, a 10-7 record for the Houston Texans in 2023, the Chicago Bears had a 7-10 record. And in fact, the one positive thing coming from the Chicago Bears is they snapped their losing streak, one of the longest losing streaks since 2022. So they get to hopefully redeem themselves a little bit going into this year. They picked up a little bit, scrounged out 7 wins last year. But the difference is the QP position. Obviously, you know that Caleb Williams, if you keep up with sports, he is the starting quarterback. I have my views on that. I think Caleb Williams is a great athlete. I don't know if long term he is the guy to be in the quarterback position just because of the way he reacts during certain situations. You saw that at USC, you saw that at Oklahoma. He was a good player, but he got a little too emotional at times. Um, but again, I think there'll be times where he will show some of that star-studded power. It's going to be seeing, will the offense stay consistent? One of the people that has to be good this year for him is DJ Moore. He's got to continue being that guy that's going to be a wide receiver. He's a big man. So let's see if he can continue those receiving yards. I believe DJ Moore played for the Carolina Panthers at one time. Um, so we'll kind of gauge and see how that goes and kind of gauge and see, okay, how are they going to do? Now, the biggest thing from this preseason game you're going to see is it's basically a little taste tester of showing you that football has not been forgotten, that football is still here, and to kind of give something people to satisfy them a little bit, giving them a little bit of a drink of water before they get the Gatorade splash going on in September when NFL season actually starts. So all August preseason, enjoy the preseason, enjoy getting those taste testers and those sips of water. More is going to come later on. Another thing that you're going to possibly see, and something that I saw in an article through Yahoo Sports, is you're going to see the kickoff looking different for the NFL. I think they're testing this out for the preseason, and then they're going to see if this works. If it does, they may apply it to the regular season. So what it would look like is they would start kicking off at the 40-yard line, defend at the 30-yard line, and then from the 20 to 1 yard line is like the loading zone, essentially where they're kicking off. So their encouragement for this supposedly is that they're hoping for more kickoff returns. They're hoping that that will be something that will be encouraged. Also, this could also help with preventing the speed of just full force grunt of just smacking somebody and just doing this collision course to where it would prevent concussions and other injuries. We'll see how it goes. I think there's nothing wrong with trying something new to see if it actually works, and then moving forward to see if it's actually something that will really work out in the long run. What are my predictions for the two teams for tonight for the regular season? I think the Houston Texans will progress. I think they're going to end up being a really, really good team. I think they'll do just as good as anybody in the AFC South. The problem is they've got to go against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they are going to be better this year. That's my opinion, just because I think they're going to progress a lot more. I don't know about Indy. Indy's got a lot to work on. I know they have Anthony Richardson at quarterback. So we'll just kind of wait and see how the preseason looks. It's not going to tell us a lot. It's going to be very plain and vanilla, but at least it will give us something to satisfy our thirst for football. It's really interesting with all of this with football coming up. And, I made the comment that sometimes it gets forgotten, right? You've had a long summer, the Olympics have been going on, and there are so many things that take place and life itself that things begin to be forgotten after a long period of time. And so even the Chicago Bears, you think about their history of greatness from the past, that has been forgotten. They really need to progress forward, and you can hear the groanings of the fans from that. The Houston Texans seem to be progressing really well. So those are some things that are key takeaways that we can take away from life, is that there are going to be things that we wish weren't forgotten that have been forgotten. And here's another thing. In the big scheme of things as a believer, we're never really forgotten by God. God truly remembers his people. And the most important part of why he remembers his people, he remembers his covenant. And that's exactly what we see in the book of the Exodus. And what something that can apply to your life today is this, is that, you know, you got Moses and the people, the Hebrews, okay, which become the people of Israel. In the beginning of Exodus 1, we see the continuation of what occurred in Genesis at a certain point where it talks about the 12 sons of Israel and basically moving into the promised land. or trying to progress us towards not the promised land, but really into the story of the Exodus, which would get us to the Exodus, then get us to Mount Sinai, and then hopefully get to the promised land. But what we know from the Exodus, they don't get to the promised land just yet because there's a lot of struggle. But Joseph's stature from Genesis 50 and his authority that he carried, uh, being in Egypt, being in an authoritative position that was granted him by the Pharaoh, well, he's dead. He died. Um, and the people of Israel, or the sons of Israel, have multiplied, and God has blessed that promise. So again, this is another part of God promising that He's going to keep His promise to multiply people and multiply people from His people. But then, in addition to that, we see this boom, boom, boom moment in Exodus where it says, "A new king has come." This is my paraphrase, and has forgotten Joseph. Wow! Isn't that wild that Joseph was forgotten in Exodus? He was also forgotten a couple different times in the book of Genesis, but yet God was showing that He had not forgotten. Um, but you're built in with this, a little bit of this, not controversy, but a little bit of a quagmire in the beginning of the book of Exodus, that there's a new king. He doesn't remember Joseph. He doesn't remember his power. And in fact, some scholars believe he even maybe refused to remember. Uh, he, even though the king of Egypt consciously forgot, God consciously remembered. And later on, what you'll see in Exodus 2 and what you'll hear is God remembering His covenant and saying, God remembered, God saw, God heard, and God knew the sufferings of His people. So maybe today for you, as you're coming to this podcast, you may feel forgotten. There may be something in your life where, like, man, I just feel like God's forgotten this point in my life. Or maybe you're dealing with a struggle. It's like, God, do you remember? Like, are you hearing me? Are you hearing my groanings and my cries? Here's the biggest encouragement I can give to you as we close the week from the Prize Podcast, and for this being the first episode on August the 1st. God does remember, and God answers your cries even when you don't cry out to Him. There's many times where I've cried out and have struggles, but how many times do we often struggle with calling out to God and not just trying to depend on ourselves? And so that's my encouragement to you today as we close is this: lean on the Lord and cry out to Him. And be encouraged, even when you don't. God still has not forgotten you. He still forgives you, and He offers His grace through Jesus and the deliverance that He's promised to you through His covenant. Thank you again for joining in on this episode of the Prize Podcast. I hope that you have a wonderful first day of August. Looking forward to football tonight. Remember, the game is tonight at 8 o'clock. You don't want to miss out on that. Also, catch up with the Olympics, and we will see you next week for another episode on Tuesday of the Prize Podcast. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.